what do we say to people in those spaces? Like, what would you advise to someone who feels ready? So it's not, so someone who's like ready to like, to use their voice more, or like, and I don't really give advice, so advice might be a wrong word, but like, if you had words of wisdom or an offering to anyone who's struggling in this moment, what would you say? Or even to your younger self?
I know.
Yeah.
Before I came into so much of that courage, I think there was a lot of things that didn't feel right in workplaces, a lot of things that left me unsettled as I heard. And I had a lot of moments of silence with myself, right? Where I was like frustrated, I was angered, and didn't say anything out of fear, right? There was always this like fear of what could happen. And I think ultimately what could have happened, which was Lee having to exit a workplace, is what happened. But I think that I had reached this point where I couldn't sit in that silence anymore, right? I couldn't sit in silence anymore when I had the opportunity to be a voice of truth in spaces of power and privilege. And I want to say that it took time to get me there. And I think, the work that I did for myself, the way that I was beginning to heal myself, ultimately allowed me to get there. And so I don't judge that younger self who, in so many ways, didn't know how to be that voice, because I needed things to be in place in my own life and my own heart to get to that place. But I think once I was able to do that in a way that was very honest, that was very authentic, that, came from a place of wanting to serve the community through just the access that I had. If I could be that one comment in a room full of a board of directors that could make in some way, shift their mind, that I got to be that. And that, I guess a lot of what came too was trusting myself and trusting my truth and my experience of knowing like, yeah, I actually know more than like this white consultant that they hired to come talk to us about the community that I come from. And so what I'll say also, if for someone who may be, and there was a lot of baby steps for me. There was a lot of like, I'm going to try this. And I remember there was also a lot of like, I found support in other colleagues of color, right? As we always had our own conversations about how things were playing out, what we wanted, what we needed, what our demands would be, and taking turns in doing that work, because it's exhausting, right? And also, like, I never judge, and I will never judge if someone's just like, what? I just don't have the capacity to do that. And I totally understand that, because sometimes we take that on top of a full-time job. So
Yeah.
I say, yeah.
Trusting yourself, I think, is the key one. That when you said that, it was like a light bulb for me too, because I think when you're in these systems in particular where someone doesn't trust you, which I've felt time and again, where it's like there's some mistrust on the other side, and maybe on both sides, and maybe I don't trust them either. But I feel like trust is the anchor and the core of it all, really. And so there are moments when you're in that, when I've been in those places of where it's built on mistrust, and mistrust is everywhere and fear is everywhere. And I just had to get silent enough to listen to myself and to trust myself. And I think that is, like, for me, the biggest takeaway, because when you trust yourself, and I know you know this based on your life path, and I know it too, is like when I trust myself, it may not make sense to anyone else.
Right.
It may not make sense to anyone else. And so that could look like the silence when you think someone's expecting you to speak, or it could look like being really vocal when no one else is speaking, or it could look like walking away from employment when you know that you think, in the back of my mind when I did it, I was like, my entire family lineage, my grandmothers and my mama's like, what are you doing walking away from good money and this big name plate,
Yeah.
you know? So, but I was like, I have to trust myself.
Yeah.
And that's been the key to all the steps, even in the darkness. Like, even when it's all caving in, feeling like that, feeling like, I'm really like in a dark place. But if I can get silent enough to listen,
Yeah.
and trust myself, it comes together, and it's the purpose is met.
I agree. And I think that's one of the things as I thought about, your question of resources. The one thing that I've realized with myself, and I've had coaches, but I remember I had a coach once tell me, I think I've lived in so many ways and I'm learning this, right? I've looked for so many like validation and affirmation outside of myself and learning how to bring that to me, right? And so I remember one time when this coach I was working with told me, eventually you're going to learn to be that person for yourself.
Mm.
And I was just like, but because I think I reached a point where I was like, but maybe if I had more coaches, maybe if I have this. And then I finally came to a moment where I was like, well, what if you just listen to yourself? And whether that's been through meditation or even through writing, where sometimes I'm like, I didn't really that like of my own, of, my ancestors, and how do I make more time to sit in silence, to welcome that into myself and to really listen to it,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much there.
And silence is a thing that, like if you're a talkative person like myself, like, and it's funny because I'm introverted, so I'm not always talkative, but if something is my thing, I'll talk about it all the time. And so different people who know me in different ways may perceive me in different ways, right? But I'm aware that I can be a bit of a chatterbox, and silence has been my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation has been my friend. A qigong practice every morning has been my friend, and my writing, where I get to really pour it all out, has been my friend. And so I value that you shared that. And I think if there's anyone searching for the answer, if there's anyone trying to understand what is theirs to do and what's the next, I think a good step is always to go in and maybe using one of those tools to begin a way to go in, which is what I hear you saying.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your present moment, like, because I see all these amazing things that you're doing, and a lot of times I think when we have these conversations, people be like, oh, they're just bitter, they're just like, oh, look, they want to be mad at us because of what. No, actually, I think all these opportunities give you wings, and give you your superpowers. So I want to just recognize your wings and your superpowers and hear some more about the new enterprise you're starting and the new path you're on, even as you're writing and all. I want to hear about all the things that you're doing now.
Awesome. And I'll share this. It was interesting because as I exited philanthropy and I got ready to kind of go back to the nonprofit sector, my husband and I had launched a Mexican salsa business. It was like the in between, like, let's just try this. Everyone had told us that we should sell. And it was just like, well, we're never going to find out unless we do it, right? And let me tell you, Damali, like I understood mentally, I was prepared that like I could only do it for a couple months because then I was going to go into the executive director role. And there's no way I could manage both. But I was so sad when I had to hit pause on like the business we started, because I had found so much joy, so much creativity. And now that I think about it, it was like, I wonder if life was just, showing me what was possible as I got ready to enter another experience that at the time I didn't know that wasn't going to be the right fit for me. But I say that because even as I was in the mess of like leaving the nonprofit sector, I guess that seed was planted, right? That seed of like, I know that I can find joy in doing something, even if it's something, even better if it's something for us, right? And so as I left nonprofit, and I'll be honest, taking some time because I needed to do that. I needed to have some alone, some moments of silence to just kind of decompress, to really think through what had happened. And then I just remember like 3 months into that process of, just doing me, to be honest, of having this voice within me that said, "You're ready." And I was like, I'm ready. Like, okay, what am I ready for? Like, what am I going to do? And shortly after, a really good friend of mine, Brittany, texts me and she's like, "Hey, I know you're taking time off, but like, when can I get salsa again?" And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, just the alignment of those things happening. It was literally like seconds after that I got that text.
Oh,
And I was like, and I was so scared to like even tell friends that I wanted to relaunch because I didn't know we're in a pandemic. The business model that existed prior was me actually physically going to places and having people try it. I was like, I wanted to do it, didn't know if it was going to work. But then again, I'm like, you know what? I won't know unless we try it. I talked to my husband and I said, hey, I still believe so much in what we had started. What if we tried to do it again? And we started, and I can't begin to tell you what it means for me in this moment of my life to be doing this, as in many ways also as a form of resistance, as a form of celebration for our culture, for our food, for the flavors, for bringing to, right now in the Bay Area at least, bringing to this community something that in so many ways is unapologetic. Because the one thing that I'm very honest about the salsa, is that it's spicy, and
yay.
it's just what it is. That's how it's going to be, because that's authentic to us, you
Yeah.
know? And so there's going to be a lot of flavors, like a mix of chiles and an explosion of flavors. And it's more than a red and a green salsa. And we have chili oils and we have so much.
Mm.
And I
I'm
realized,
gonna get some.
and I realized like there's been a lot of people who come by, and this blows me away, right? Like, who've never tried what we're doing, but who just, for whatever reason, whatever we're presenting, however we're presenting ourselves, that they say, okay, that looks good, like let me try it, right? But it's like kind of like this blind tasting and this blind trust of, okay, like let's just see what you're all about. And in all of that, also just sharing more of, the ingredients that we're working with, the chiles that we're working with. I'm learning so much about just also just the world of salsas and everything that can be done, and really in my heart doing the best that I can to present it in a way that pays respect to something that is so important in Mexican culture, something that, it breaks my heart, Damali, all the times that I've talked to either, waiters at different Mexican restaurants, because the one thing we've learned as two Mexicans is that you always ask for the salsa that they use for themselves in the back. Never what they put out. There's
Oh
always
my
a
goodness.
secret one.
Right.
And oftentimes when you're able to have conversations of like, why isn't this out versus what you're putting out? It's because of the way that the food is catered to white folks. And I'm just done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just
Well,
done. this and no, like
Yeah.
what we make is authentic for us. It's for our people. It's for what they know to be true. And if white people like it or not is not really my concern.
Right. Which is the thing that is so interesting to me. Like here's the thing. And this is the awareness that I really hope to raise more and more is that I know that everything this country's been built on and all the systems and all the things, including the food and all the things, have this kind of this whiteness
Yeah.
wafting across it, right? But there's some things that, well, first of all, I think we need to break that all up. I think we need to undo all of that. But if we're going to talk about food,
Yeah.
there's some things that are sacred, right? And there's just some things that are sacred. And I went into a Caribbean restaurant years ago. I looked at their menu. And when I looked at their menu and even the way they presented their starters, I was like, no. And I spoke to the manager and I said, listen, if we're gonna call this a Jamaican restaurant, okay, we cannot have plantains with sour cream and black beans. If we're gonna call this if this is a Jamaican restaurant, right? But the same conversation about who they're catering and how they need to kind of embrace like the more inclusive thing. And I'm like, I really want the place that says, this is us, this is because I've seen it where if you bring people who appreciate you will come.
Right.
And you'll be surprised at how many more people that can be. And then you educate the palates of the others.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm just thrilled that you're like unapologetically,
Totally.
this is it. And
Yeah.
this is what it's gonna be.
Exactly.
And it's artisanal. I like, it is, the thing that represents so beautifully our culture.
Right.
I love it. So, I want bottles and things. And so if you want to share how people can order it, get it, access
Right.
it, I would love that to hear more about.
I have one right here because I just wanted to show you. And then this is our chili oil, which has pumpkin seeds at the bottom of
Yeah.
it.
I was like, okay.
It's so good. And I feel like it's interesting that a lot of people don't know a Mexican chili oil. So salsa macha goes on everything.
Never seen a Mexican. I don't think I've seen that. So
Yeah, so much like to do with this, and it's becoming really popular. So we are on Instagram. Everything's through Instagram, which also blows my
okay.
mind. Quali salsas, and I try to rotate the menu every week. I'm now getting a sense of like what people are liking. So we do batches of fresh salsa, everything from like a raw salsa verde with fresh chunks of avocado, which is very traditional in Mexico City. My first salsa, which I'm really, really proud of because now it's becoming, people are really liking it. It's one of the spicier ones, which like I said is okay. It's a creamy chile de árbol salsa. That's a lot of chile de árbol in that. It has like some nuttiness as well. A little of that goes a long way, but it's just delicious. Also educating kind of where the salsas are coming from. So that one is more centered in the state of Guanajuato. This one's from actually like the peninsula in Yucatan. Yeah. So all parts of Mexico have different salsas. My family's from the north. And so although we may be a little milder in the spice, there's still the kick to it. And then I do molcajete salsas once a month because that is a lot of arm work to make it that way, but it's the best salsa, the best way to bring out the flavors in the chiles and the garlic and the onion. But it's a very special salsa. It's not for every day.
And are you doing cooking classes too? I feel like I've seen like different things on Instagram and like maybe like you're dipping your toes into all these different expressions of the food and bringing the food to life. Are you
Yes.
doing those regularly? And can people, is it like something, well, nowadays everything's virtual. So it's an offering where people can tune in.
Yes. So as a part of me understanding how much education we get to do with some of the salsas, because a question that I get asked a lot is, how can I eat this? And the one thing that I always say is this: there's no rules with salsa, right? Like you put it on anything that you want. For us, it's funny because maybe we're used to having here like chips and salsa, right? And it's actually really rare for us to do that at home. And if you actually look at my pictures, like I don't really have any pictures of just chips and salsa because it's always paired with food.
Yeah.
And so I want to, through some of like the cooking that I'll be doing virtually, is teach people recipes, Mexican recipes, but also I want to open it up to other dishes, maybe teaming up with other friends from other cultures to like, okay, let's cook a dish together. And then like we choose a salsa to pair it with, just to kind of open up minds of people of what food, it could go with.
I love it. I love what you're doing, and I invite people to follow you on Instagram. It sounds like you're doing everything through Instagram. I invite people to read your work on Medium. I mean, if we had more time, we could talk about the self-love piece that you just wrote. I read, by the way, I didn't text you back to be like, I read it, but I read it and I loved it. And I think it's such a combination like of the kind of discovery of freedom that you found in the first piece and like the self-awareness and all that you leverage, and then like the second piece around self-love feels to be like a continuation to me of like what you started in the first piece. So I invite people to read you on Medium, also invite people to follow you on Instagram, and if there's any other contact information you want to share, please do, and we'll close out from here.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say any of those is
Okay.
kind of, what I offer, and I will continue to write as well. So kind of looking out for, I think a piece that I'm really interested in doing is just those two pieces I put out in the context of coming back to this and what it means for us.
Yeah, thank you, Janeen. Thank you for this
Beautiful.
conversation. Thank you for your friendship, for the years of just being in each other's corner, because I feel like I've been in yours, you've been in mine, and I really appreciate that a lot.
Likewise, Damali. Mm.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll.
Gracias.
All right. Bye.
Bye.